Hi guys, it's Tony Robbins. You're listening to Habits and Hustle. Crush it.
So we have a really special episode of Habits and Hustle today. It may be, some of the content may be hard to listen to, but I think it's really important that everybody listens to the full episode in its entirety. We had someone named Tim Ballard on, who is the founder and CEO of Operation Underground Railroad. And what it does is it's a nonprofit that basically goes around the world and saves children from sex trafficking. It's becoming the fastest growing illegal business in the world. And Tim has dedicated the last 10 years of his life to this organization and has saved thousands of kids. And the reason why I think it is really important that everybody listens, if you have kids or not, is that people are susceptible right beside you in your backyard, your next door. It's happening right here in the US, much more than you would even think it's happening. It's becoming one of the largest rings for sex trafficking and human trafficking. So even though some of the content may be difficult to listen to, please listen and hear what Tim has to say. Today on this podcast, this is one that I think is if not the most important podcast we've ever done here. And because we have Tim Ballard, and Tim Ballard is like a real life superhero. I said that when he walked in. I really, really mean it. This guy is doing amazing things beyond your imagination. He created something that is called, we'll talk all about it, but he basically is saving children. Like sex trafficking is a massive thing. We're going to get into it. And he has this thing called Operation Underground Railroad. Operation Underground Railroad. I always miss that. And he basically goes around the world saving children. And human trafficking is a massive, one of the biggest or the biggest illegal businesses in the world, right? It's becoming
fastest growing. Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah,
$150 billion a year industry. It's the buying and selling of human beings.
And that's and 10 billion I heard are children, right?
So there's in total, so it's $150 billion a year. And to kind of wrap your head around that, that's like the equivalent of with the amount of money that's paid every year in buying and selling people.
Right.
That's the same as you could buy every Starbucks franchise, every NBA team, and still have enough money to send every American child to college for 4 years. That's how much money is spent yearly on buying and selling people. And they estimate around about 40 million people enslaved today, which is more than any time in the history of the world, that many people enslaved. And about 10 million are children.
That's what I meant. There like 10 million are children?
About 10 million.
Okay.
And most of that's actually slave labor, which can quickly become sex slavery. But 2 million, it's estimated, are dedicated solely to being trafficked for sex, children for sex.
I'm actually surprised. I thought it would be a higher number. I assume when people are captured as slaves, that's going to be part of the process.
It is. Once you're in slave labor, once you're owned by someone, they'll use you for whatever. So
yeah, exactly. And it's very prevalent here in the U.S. People think it's happening somewhere far, far away, and is it not the most? It's actually the most pervasive in the U.S.
So the United States we just got ranked in the top 3 for destination countries. People need to understand that the United States, we are the highest consumers of child exploitation material, child rape videos.
Right.
We consume more than anybody. So the demand is here in this country. And so oftentimes we work in several countries, over 25 countries. And these countries will hire or ask us, basically, we're a nonprofit, we don't charge them, but they ask us to go undercover because we look like the clients that those traffickers in their countries are looking for. But what the traffickers are learning is if they can get the kids and the women into the United States to feed that demand here, they can make even more money. So we're seeing an increase in people being brought into this country. Not to mention this, there's so many, our own homegrown, born in the US victims, which range in between 150, 200,000. They believe children in the US are currently being trafficked from the U.S.
Well, this is such a disturbing topic, right? Like, because I have kids. Obviously, you have 9 kids. I can't even wrap my head around it. It's such an awful thing. Like, I heard you speak about this because people don't think it's going to happen in their, where they live or like in their backyard. And with Instagram and social media and online gaming, I heard you say that is one of the major places that this can happen. And parents are just, maybe they're not oblivious on purpose because they're busy they're working, wherever else. And they think, okay, my kid's just playing a game. But yet these kids, that's how people are getting captured.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think parents, a lot of us who are at least my age and older, video games in our day was, you played the computer.
Right.
You don't even comprehend. We don't even register that you're playing some person that in another state or some other place. But that's the reality. Any game these days, our kids, you think they're playing the computer, they're playing other people, and you don't know who those people are. And so these predators know what to do. They know that they can pretend to be a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy to connect with someone that age, play Fortnite or whatever game they're going to play, and then they start to, and there's always that texting app, like, hey, so what's up? And they become friends, and then all of a sudden they're calling and then inviting to go meet at the mall. And so it is a very popular way that's being utilized, especially in the last couple of years with the COVID restrictions. Yeah. And how governments have responded. And you just told me you don't want your kid behind a computer. So you do school here, which is such a good idea, because what's happening is these predators know, and we have even darknet chats where we can show it. They know the kids are home on their computers. Mom and dad are trying to figure things out, and they're home on the computers. The pedophiles are home on their computers, and it's a target-rich environment for them. And they've even called it harvest. It's harvest time. The kids are alone. They're at their computers. Now we can get them. And I mean, we just had a case last year, just 30 miles from my house, where there was a guy, 42-year-old pedophile, who was gaming with 2 6-year-old girls from Indiana, and eventually coached them and taught them, desensitized them enough to where they started taking their clothes off and sent naked pictures to him.
A 6-year-old?
6-year-old.
But how does that even happen? Like, first of all, because I have a 6-year-old right now. I'm an 8-year-old. They're so innocent and they don't know what this even is. Like, how do they even keep and catch these kids' attention long enough? Because when my 6-year-old calls her grandmother, who's in Canada, she can't stay on the phone for longer than 30 seconds.
This guy was gaming with them.
Right.
So he got onto one of their games that they were playing.
At a 6-year-old, they don't have the attention span to even speak, though, you would think, right?
He got him to the point where he said, okay, now take your clothes off. Go here, push the camera function. And luckily the mom discovered before he got to the girls, but she said, I thought they were playing this cute little game, and I thought it was just playing against the computer. She had no idea that her 6-year-olds were playing with a dude or anyone. Right.
Because I think, so my 8-year-old is always playing these video games, right? And he, the other day, was like, oh yeah, I got to say goodbye to so-and-so. I'm like, say goodbye. Who are you talking to on there? He's like, oh, my friend. I'm like, who's your friend? Like, this can easily be some crazy pedophile somewhere.
Yeah.
And then how long does the process take? What are some signs that a parent can look for? How do we get more involved to even know that this is happening? Because this is something I think happens every single day with especially what you're saying with COVID, with people now even more fixated on the computer than ever before. How can we kind of help this from happening?
Well, so first of all, the best kind of preventative strike on this is for parents to know the games their kids are playing, right? And know the apps that they're on, understand how they work, and monitor them. Now, if it's gone on too long and the parents haven't done that, things you can look for: do gifts show up to your kid's doorstep? Mailed in. It's like, what?
That's an obvious
any
one.
kind of any kind of communication that's strange. Like you just said, your kid was like, I got to say goodbye to my friend. What friend? What are you talking about? Or phone calls late at night. Because eventually these perpetrators want to get access to the kid. It's not enough just to game with them.
Right.
So eventually they're going to want a phone call. They're going to want They're going to send gifts. They're going to want to invite them out. And they prey on the kids who are vulnerable as well.
Right.
So they'll go on to Instagram and find the teenage girls or adolescent girls who are complaining about being lonely, or they know what to look for, and then they show up in the comments. Hey, you're beautiful. I'm a model agent. Mm-hmm. I'm a photographer. Would you come to my studio? And they kind of lure them in slowly that way.
So what is the age range that is the most is it more girls who are 10, 8? What's the biggest age range that you see?
So in the United States, we're seeing that the average age is between like 12, 13, 14-ish, around that, where they get kind of inducted into it or forced into the commercial sex slavery. But that's the average. But I've seen cases 6-month-old or younger, up to into the 20s. So
do you see boys ever? That's happened to boys too. What's the ratio of boys to girls?
I think there's still a lot more girls,
right.
But the boys often get forgotten about because people don't go there as quickly. But I'll just tell you, a week and a half ago, I was working in a country with a foreign government, and we had infiltrated a trafficking ring. And they believed that we were there to be clients. And they brought us 6 and 7-year-old boys to sell us for sex.
And how much are they selling them? How much are they getting sold for?
So it's kind of, the markets are regional. So you can basically add 2 or 3 times to what the price would be for like an adult sex worker. So let's say in some countries that you can pay $200 for an adult sex worker, right? A prostitute. Mm-hmm. And then you can add probably, it could be $400 to $600 in that same market for a child.
That's it?
For that, well, that would be for like the night or for 2 nights.
Right, but do you ever see a lot of like people selling
sell permanently?
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, exactly, for an actual slave to live in the outside and forever, for years, and then that. I know that you were saying with why it's 150 billion is because you can resell over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Like drugs, you sell once and then you're out,
right,
for that person. But a person, you can sell until you get bored and then sell them again.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, I've been involved with those kind of deals, and I've seen them range anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 to actually buy the child outright. Usually, they don't need to do that. They can lure them or kidnap them, usually from impoverished areas. We see it happening right now on the border. Mm-hmm. I mean, if anyone walks in with a child, mm-hmm. they pretty much have free passage. They just told they have 72 hours to be released if there's a child with them, and they're told to just show up at their court date, immigration court, and it's like 2 or 3 years in the future because they're so backlogged. Wow. So what smugglers are doing is they're taking children, kidnapping children from Central America and other places, and they're just pairing them with their clients who they're smuggling. Say this kid is yours. Kids, say this is your dad or your mom, and you'll get right through. And then call this number when you get through, and we'll pick the kid up. And they're just recycling these kids. And eventually, when the time is right or the price is right, they'll sell the kid for sex. So this is happening right now at the border.
That is unbelievable. And like how do we see in the movies, right? You see this in the movies, like with, Liam Neeson, The Taken, or all these things, right? Like these are just, you think it only happens in the movies, where do they drug these girls into a place where then they just are so out of it, they don't even know what's happening? Like what does actually happen? Can you walk me through the process?
So first, I think it's important to recognize that trafficking has different faces in different places. Okay. And movies like Taken can wake people up in a good way, but also can mislead people into missing the signs of what it is. A lot of girls are trafficked and they're living in their own homes. For example, we've seen cases where even in affluent neighborhoods, and they live with an amazing family, but they got caught up in a situation where they're dating some guy and they're 15, 16 years old. They're having sex. He takes videos of it. Right. Then they break up because for sure they're going to break up within 6 months, right? Right. And then that video is used by the boyfriend. Hey, I'm going to show this to your pastor. I'm going to show this to your grandparents. I have your entire email list. I'm going to email these naked pictures of you unless you go sleep with my friend or unless you provide sex for me or whoever. And that is trafficking. And these girls come home. Their parents have no idea, and they're living in a hell, and they are being trafficked. So, and they're going to cheerleading practice. They're going to their soccer games. Everything looks normal.
Right. I would think that was blackmailing.
Yeah.
So it's basically
it's that too, but it's also trafficking.
It is trafficking. So it can actually just happen here in that kind of
way.
It
happens all the time, and so movies like Taken can be a disservice to people who they're looking for the white van kidnapping the kid.
Right.
Now, in like I said, different places, different faces, that does happen too. Now, Taken, I thought was pretty accurate in how the girls were actually treated, and yes, drugged and desensitized. I've seen cases where they show them pornography or child exploitation material, child rape videos to kind of desensitize them.
Right.
But generally, it's rare to see like the cold kidnap kind of case, like in Taken.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're businessmen, and true to form, true to the movie, you kick up a lot of dust if you're just going to kidnap someone who has a family that's going to be looking for them. So it's much better as a business because these traffickers are evil, but they're businessmen. They're evil businessmen. But so the lure is what they're going to do. They're going to go up to an impoverished area. They're going to offer a job, offer an opportunity to go to school and be a nanny or whatever.
Right.
And then the parents wish them well and say, hey, call me every weekend. Oh yeah, here's a cell phone for you. Your daughter will call you every weekend. And then they never hear from that child again.
Wow.
So it's much better from a business perspective. So you see a lot of lure. And women, by the way, are 4 times more likely to be trafficked. And it's the same concept, the lure. And we've worked quite a few of those cases in the last several months. So
basically then, I was going to say something like usually like here, like where I live in LA, you have a lot of guys who are really rich, who are super successful, and they're going out or they're like doing all sorts of like nasty things with like really young girls, right? And because this is very myopic, and I'm not saying every single guy is like that, don't get me wrong, but I would think, what is the percent? I would think when I think about this, a lot of those people who are paying that kind of money are guys who kind of like look normal, so to speak, who are successful, who are people who, they kind of like look like they belong in society just fine, like anybody else, but they're the ones I would think who are a little bit more conniving, who are doing those deviant behaviors because they have access. And then they can pay other people to do it. Like, have you noticed that as something, or am I just going to make it because I think of people I know who are like just these rich dudes, private equity guys, whoever, who are like just sleeping with a bunch of like young 16-year-olds or whatever, that they're the ones who are the most, not the most, but is that like a one of these traffickers? Do they look like that? Like how often is it like that?
So
if that makes sense. Yeah, it's a roundabout way of saying.
It does make sense, and it's an important question because sometimes we think that it's going to look like the crazy, sick, greased hair. It's not. It is anybody. It is any walk of life. I've seen professionals. I've seen lawyers, educators, even law enforcement.
Right.
We've had to arrest it's this sex addiction which leads to this. It's
like a deviant behavior.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It's a closet crime, a closet sin, and it affects anyone who lets that into their brain and into their heart. So there is no way to profile.
There is no way to profile. But if you would say, what is the percentage of people who do look like everybody else, who are like considered in society to be like upstanding citizens? What is the percentage of people who are these quote unquote
So in my kind of anecdotal experience, my just opinion, I'd say in the 90s. That's 90% is just regular people that you wouldn't think twice about.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. So can you kind of, how did you even get to be this down the route? Like, how did you start this? I know you were in the CIA. Can you kind of give your story a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was an agent with the Department of Homeland Security. I was in the CIA briefly before that, but
doing what?
I was just doing reports and nothing crazy.
Okay. You weren't a Navy SEAL or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I got into fighting trafficking as a special agent with the U.S. government.
Okay.
I was also an undercover operator for Homeland Security, infiltrating trafficking rings. So my first post was I was a decade on the border with Mexico and the United States, and I basically I speak Spanish. So in 2006, the laws changed in the United States and allowed U.S. agents for the first time to go overseas and infiltrate trafficking rings where there were American tourists. And it was this new law that still in effect. It's an awesome law. If we catch an American having sex with a child overseas, we can prosecute them as if they had committed that crime on U.S. soil. Wow. So that opened up a lot of things. And I was spending a lot of time overseas, in the Spanish-speaking world mostly, pretending to be a purveyor of child sex or a trafficker or a sex tourist. And that opened my eyes. Before that, I did a lot of child exploitation material cases, where we're getting the end users for possessing this material. But now we're going out and actually finding these kids. The problem that no one kind of intended was if I couldn't find the American, which usually it was hard to find because I only had a couple weeks or something to get.
Yeah.
We'd always find the kids, but finding the Americans in that little window was hard. But what it exposed me to all this stuff, and I'd have all these, in my mind, pending cases, but there was no jurisdiction that I had to work them.
Right.
So that's what opened my mind to, well, what if I just quit then? If I quit, I would have no jurisdictional limitations and we could just bounce around from country to country and just find the kids. And so that was the beginning. In 2012, 13, I was working a couple of cases, one in Colombia, where I was really just supposed to be consulting on the case.
Really?
And kind of got myself too deep and overcommitted. And that's the basis of the movie Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, I know. I didn't see the movie because I saw pieces of it actually. I didn't see the whole thing. But you have you have two movies.
Yes, so there's a couple documentaries.
Oh, the Sound of Freedom is about the whole Columbia thing.
There's a Columbia documentary, which it's called Triple Take. It's won 3 Emmys, but it hasn't been released yet.
That's right.
I don't know when that's going to get released. There's a documentary called Operation Two Saint, which is on Amazon Prime.
But wait a second, why hasn't that movie been released? It's won Emmys, you said? And
it's won Emmys because they entered it in and they won. It's a really good film.
But then how does someone see, where do you see it?
You can't see it yet. We're working on trying to get it released. It's tied up in kind of bureaucratic business dealings with the owners of the
wow.
So we're just trying to work a deal to bring it out the right time and with the right people. So hopefully it can come out. I can send you a link. You can watch it. Yeah,
I would love to.
Yeah.
What was the movie though? Was it Sounds of Freedom when you spoke at the Tony Robbins thing?
Yes, Sound of Freedom is a feature film starring Jim Caviezel, Mary Sorvino.
Right, who played your wife, right? She played
right? And Jim Caviezel plays me in the film. And Tony Robbins is an executive producer of that movie. So so that was supposed to come out that summer of last year. Yeah. But for the theaters all shutting down. So now we think it'll probably come out this year. We don't know. I don't know.
So how would someone see that?
It'll be a theatrical release. Everyone will know when it's coming out. But
to date, has anyone seen this movie?
Oh, just very private screenings.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I won't be able to. Can you send me that one too? Or
I could ask for permission.
Okay.
They're pretty strict, these guys.
Okay, well, listen, if you can pull a couple, strings.
I would love for you to see it. Yeah.
I would love it. I'm fascinated by all of this stuff because it's just. I guess also because I have kids, like I said, I'm even more it's so heart-wrenching to hear all of this stuff. And if there's anything, I can do, my audience can do, my friends can do, I think it's super important for people to know the options. We'll get into that after, but sorry, continue on with what you were saying.
So I was working on a case in Colombia and also one in Haiti, where we had identified trafficking rings potentially, but we couldn't work the case because there was no American involved that we could find. Eventually, there were Americans. We found them eventually, but I didn't find them in enough time to convince my bosses to let me stay on the case.
Oh, wow.
And so in 2013, both those cases had kind of come to the surface for me, and I really wanted to work them.
Right.
And I knew the only way to do it would be to quit my job and go about it privately. And so my wife and I made the craziest decision. We had no money. I was friends and still am good friends with Glenn Beck, the radio broadcaster. And I told him about my idea. He says, well, I'll raise your first bit of money if you do it. I said, okay. So he started raising the money in November, December 2013. And then that's when it was really scary, because once the money came in,
right,
I was like, oh my gosh, no, I have to do
now
this.
you have to do it. Exactly.
But it's not enough to make me feel confident, but it's too much to not jump in. It was a horrible time.
How much did he actually raise at first?
He had raised quite a bit. It was north of $500,000.
Okay.
That he had raised. But these operations can cost up to $100,000 if you're doing it right and to really do the prosecution and
how do you do it? Tell us how is
well. So
because people should be donating to this because of all. People should know what do those donations do?
So first and foremost, we serve to empower law enforcement. We're not a rogue or vigilante group. So we go find our law enforcement partners, ones that we trust, who we have spent time with and vetted in my former life and the former lives of my operators have kind of lend ourselves to that knowledge. Who can you trust? Which countries? And then you go sit down with them and say, okay, what's going on? What do you need? What leads do you have? And they all have leads. Well, geez, there's this place here. Like we just did a case last year where a certain the boss of anti-trafficking for the whole country came to us and said, I've got 5 locations where I know women and children are being trafficked out of. And they're fronts, like maybe it's a restaurant or it's a spa or it's a little resort, whatever it is.
Wow.
We can't get in because they don't serve people that look like us. They only serve people that look like you.
Wow.
So can you go in, get pictures, get intel, tell me what the guy is doing, what ages, what the girls' names. So we literally will send in operators pretending to be clients, and they'll go and hang out at this resort or whatever the target is. And so then we send the information back. We're basically just kind of like glorified informants,
right?
That are clean,
right,
that pay our own way. And in fact, we'll even go beyond paying our own way. We'll provide technology, computer, digital forensic equipment, whatever is needed. In 3 weeks, I'm going down to another country that has never had digital forensic capabilities, meaning, imagine you arrest a pedophile or a trafficker, and you got their cell phone, you got to get the data off, find the child exploitation material, whatever it is. They have no equipment. So we're going down and setting up to start to build a lab. So we provide all of those kind of services for them. And then they instruct us. We go back and say, okay, here's what he said. Okay, go back and say this to him. Okay, go back and say this until they've made their case.
Right.
And then they can then make the arrest and prosecute and get the girls out. And then comes in the part that's most important, which is our aftercare.
Right.
And we have a very kind of robust program, amazing people running that program, that we make sure that before there's any kind of law enforcement action on a case that we are supporting, there has to be that aftercare piece in place first. So that the minute those kids or women are rescued, right, there is a place for them to go, opportunities for them, and so forth.
Right, because you can't just you can't just save somebody and be like, okay, we'll see ya, peace, have a nice life. I mean, there's such damage mentally, I would imagine, and and they're also probably abused physically to such a large degree, right? So it's called Face Forward, right?
Yes, Face Forward, yeah.
And so you guys have, that's a huge job in itself. My gosh, just to do the aftercare.
Yeah. So part of we have an aftercare partner here in the LA area, Santa Monica, called Face Forward. And they're a group of medical specialists, plastic surgeons that will, for free, take the survivors and fix them. So for example, I was just in Africa a month or two ago, and we were helping a bunch of survivors who had been exploited, trafficked. And, their abusers, their traffickers will beat the heck out of them and make an example out of them if they don't cooperate. And what they do is they'll throw acid on their faces, and it just literally just burns. It's like melts their faces right off. And so we met a lot of those women in Africa last couple months ago. Is just horrifying. You look and their eyes are just melted into their face, God. And and there's no hope where they are. So we'll bring them here, and they'll fix them.
They'll fix them?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to get back to how you Glenn Beck and the money and the Haiti, but so is that, I don't understand. If I was someone who was paying for a sex slave, you would think that wouldn't happen, right? Because you'd want someone to have aesthetically look a certain way, right? So
yeah.
Why would they do that?
So the reason would be because they'll control like 15, 20 girls, let's say. And this one keeps acting up. This one keeps running away. This one is not doing what the client wants. So it's worth it. Say, you're not making me any money anyway. I'm going to scare the rest into compliance by melting your face off. And that'll scare the others. Okay, we better be compliant with this. So that's what it is.
And how are these people kept? Like, what have you seen when you've gone into these trenches? Like, how typically what does it look like?
So we've seen everything from they live at their homes. I worked a case. One of the early cases we worked actually was a case where these children, as young as 9, 10, 11 years old, had been given scholarships to a modeling school. So every afternoon from 3 to 5, they'd go to the modeling school, and it was being taught by the person who was, the winner of the pageant in that town.
Right.
So it kind of known. And these kids the parents think, oh, this is great. My daughter's going to be famous and rich. And what they don't realize is between the hours of 3 and 5 after school, they're being shown pornography, or they're being shown child exploitation material. They are being desensitized, sometimes drugged, and then eventually told, okay, part of being a model is you go into that room and do what you saw in the video to that American man.
Right.
But they're going home every night, right?
Yeah.
In some cases.
Wow.
In other cases, they're not. In other cases, they're held. They're taken. I've seen cases where they actually live with the trafficker. The trafficker has lured them out of a country into another country. And again, it's almost always these impoverished families that have no recourse. The police don't even work in their country, right? Or in the region where they live, they say.
Right.
And so they have no recourse, and they lure them, move them 2 countries away, and they'll never see them again. And they'll live in apartments or homes with the traffickers who keep them. And I've seen those cases, by the way, in the United States, especially when they'll smuggle girls from Latin America, Mexico, and they'll basically keep them trapped in a house in New York City, and just take them out every day, and they serve up to 20, 30 clients in a day.
Wow. Was that like something that Jeff Epstein was doing? Did he have any of these girls that were trafficked and smuggled? Yeah,
so what he was mostly doing was kind of the local girls.
Right, the
local girls in West Palm, and then also in
New York and
the Virgin Islands.
Right.
And he would just have someone just go pick them up, and his was a kind of a slow roll.
But isn't that still trafficking?
Oh yeah,
these girls? Yeah,
totally. Yeah, he'd have them come give him massages, but then he would turn it into.
But those girls, I felt, were like part of this whole thing with him. Like they would have to travel with him, and it was like that's kind of what when I think of a trafficker, I think of him as someone being a trafficker, right?
Sure,
like,
he was.
Is there a profile of like a girl that's the most considered to be the most valuable if they're, let's say, blonde and blue-eyed and Caucasian?
I'd say the premium would be placed on how vulnerable they are in their lives. Do they have a stable family life? These guys know how to prey on those who don't have that.
Right.
Like there's not a stable family life. There's no mom or no dad, or it's some senile aunt or grandma who's kind of taking care of them.
Right.
Those are the cases we see. I've seen most often, and they know how to look for that.
Right.
And then they offer them a job, and then they bring them in, just like Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
No, just gonna come massage my feet or whatever.
Right.
And then pretty soon it's.
But what I mean is like on the dark web, which I want to ask you about. Is there like a profile or girl that's saying these are the most wanted? This who looks like this.
So yeah, I'd say, for example, we worked a case in Haiti last year.
Right.
Crazy case where these Venezuelan girls were they were promised jobs in the Dominican Republic, like legitimate jobs. They had 15 little babies amongst all of them. One was a police officer. Others were professionals, and they went to get this job for a certain amount of time, and they ended up. A lot of them were drugged, others taken. They all woke up in a brothel in Haiti, And why? Because in Haiti, a Venezuelan girl, anything new
Right.
would be valuable in that region.
Right.
So we ended up there's actually a documentary being made about this case. It's crazy. The White House was involved. Tony Robbins was actually involved. He helped us fly them out of the country. But it was a crazy case of how these girls really escaped with our help.
How?
So our guys went in as clients. We got the lead that something was wrong. We learned that they didn't want to be there.
Where do you get this lead from? I guess you have so many people now that are like, kind of like ears to the ground.
Exactly. Yeah. This place was like the largest kind of club in town.
Right.
And word got back to us that all these Venezuelan girls were there.
Right.
Which is suspicious. Why would they come to Haiti? Do they want to be here? Because what they do is once you have the girl, you take their passports. They don't speak the language. These girls were actually locked in a literal jail cell behind the brothel. But even if they weren't, like, go for it. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Right. The police are coming here to use our services. You don't speak the language. You have no passport. What are you going to do? So they have them. So we went in as clients, acting like we wanted to rent out the whole place for a big party.
Right.
And one of the girls sent something different. They were praying every day that someone would come get them. And they walked up to one of our guys. In fact, that guy's sitting right here. He actually was the guy that.
Oh my
Don't bring him on the
gosh.
camera, but you can wave to him.
Yeah.
So he led that operation, actually.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
you said you're just the driver to him today. I knew that wasn't true. I know that wasn't true. We're going to get to the Nazarene Fund, by the way, just for a second. Okay.
So, and it was a joint, actually, OUR Nazarene Fund operation, this one.
Oh, it was, okay.
In Haiti. So this one of the girls who just sensed a light, these are praying girls asking for God's help because they're just stuck. And she handed a little piece of paper to him. And it just said, "Help us, please. Ayúdanos, por favor." But she even wrote it in her left hand in case it got tracked back to her and he wasn't a good guy. And he gave it to the traffickers like, it wasn't me. But they just took a risk. And sure enough, he called me right now in tears, just like, "You won't believe this." So within 24, 48 hours, we had them all out. But what happened was the police that were supporting us, which we knew would happen, thought would happen, they are literally getting paid off by the traffickers during the rescue. So then we literally have to throw the girls in the van and get out. And now we're being chased by traffickers and police.
Oh my God.
So this is where the story just goes crazy. And then we finally find another law enforcement unit that will come in. Our guys, we won't pay a bribe. The traffickers will. And so it's just who's going to pay? Well, we're not going to pay. They wanted us to pay for the passports. Like the cops were trying to negotiate a deal.
Oh
like, if you just give me this money, I'll go in and we'll buy the passports back. Like, what are you talking about, buy the passports back? These are slaves now. The minute you've limited their movement, they're no longer, owners of their own lives.
100%.
And we didn't pay. We ended up just working every angle we could get and got the girls out, got them into the Dominican Republic where they went into hiding. And then finally we had friends in the White House at the time who got them visas.
Wow.
Because they couldn't go back to Venezuela. So we got them visas, and then we had to figure out how do we get them home, because we don't want to take them through a commercial airport because the traffickers are on the loose. And we're on the same island, right? It's the same island. They shared Haiti and Dominican. So eventually so I called Tony Robbins. I said, "Tony, I need your help. I need you to get these girls out of here. I can't take them to an airport." "No problem." He sends his airplane down, his 737 jet. These girls go from living in a jail cell to walking onto Tony Robbins' plane. We had to remind them this is not America for anybody.
Right, okay? right, exactly.
But Tony and his wife Sage is so sweet, and they said their one request is, if please, because the White House actually said, "Fly to DC and we're going to welcome you properly in the White House, welcome you to our country."
Really?
And it was really cool because they didn't do any publicity around it, even though it was an election year, and they didn't even ask. It was just, let's just they got a tour of the White House, private tour, but on the way there.
And when did this happen? You said
this was last August.
Just recently.
So yeah, this would have been September. Like the rescue was in August, so it was like September, October. So I think September is when they actually finally got free. And Tony just asked that their first day of freedom be at his West Palm Beach home. So literally their first steps on American soil were his house. Because they literally got off the jet into a bus, taken to Tony's house, and they walked out onto the into his backyard that overlooks the ocean, and they just
Oh my God.
it was not a dry eye in the place.
Oh my.
But it was all filmed, so this will all be in a documentary, probably hopefully by next year. Amazing story. And the thing that's so amazing is these women are the heroes because they want so badly their story to be told, because they will rescue so many more by saying, don't get on the plane.
Yeah.
The job sounds too good to be true because it is too good to be true. Don't get on the plane. And this is happening all over the place.
Yeah.
We same thing. And to answer your question about what's the ideal look, again, it's usually the exotic look. So we're in Africa, same thing happened. I'll show you a video after this because they're not home yet, but they're going to be home in a couple of weeks. We were to Africa and they had done the same thing to these Thai women. They offered them jobs, stole their passports. They don't speak the language. They're stuck in Africa. And they're told that, yeah, you're going to start having sex to make money for me. That's the job. And they're stuck.
And how old are these girls, the Thai girls?
They're anywhere between 18 and, I mean, there's younger, there's minors as well.
Right.
But we actually open our mission statement to include women now.
Right.
It's women and children because it's just, they're 4 times more likely. And because of COVID and the lockdowns, people are desperate. So someone comes and says, hey, come move to Kenya for a little bit and you'll be a domestic worker, you'll help it. No, they steal their passports. You're going to turn sex tricks.
Jeez. I also think because I think you said women, is it because also with COVID, people are more lonely than ever. And so they're more vulnerable because of that.
Sure.
And so
yeah.
because kids, it's not the same, but for when you said women, like I know of women that, who just kind of like, there's all these like things happening on like even LinkedIn where these guys are posing as real guys and they're just people who are looking for money, let's say. But same thing happens as you're looking for like a sex trafficker, right? Like you can say the same, you can finagle your way to get to somebody when they're vulnerable, if they're lonely or if they don't know any better or they don't have. So that doesn't surprise me that there's women. I'm just surprised that like I would think as a client, I would want a young girl just because I think it would be easier to manipulate when they're there.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And that happened. I mean, I don't want to minimize that at all.
Yeah.
It's just that the more we look for kids, we're always finding these women who have kids, by the way.
So
and
crazy.
So we've
But do they have
up.
husbands or boyfriends? Or they
Oftentimes,
usually
yeah.
Oh, I would think that was because they.
Sometimes they do. In fact, sometimes their husbands say, okay, yeah, go, you'll make some money for us. But they think they're going to go have legitimate jobs.
Right.
And then they never hear from them again.
Wow.
Because once they leave that country and
it's done,
they're gone.
I mean, to be able to find, I want to ask you about the dark web. I'm very curious, but you seem to film you seem to film as much as you can. Like, isn't it kind of hard to do this job while having video cameras running around? Because isn't that kind of like, don't people kind of realize there's something's happening? Like, it's not like you're that inconspicuous when you have, a whole,
sure. Well, the cameras, if we film things, usually it's for the evidence that we're going to turn over to the police.
Right.
And then
even so, you have a camera.
But they're hidden cameras. They're like in here.
Oh, wow.
In fact, this is a camera. I'm filming.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
In that bottle? Uh-oh.
So yeah, they're cameras that you would never.
Oh, so it's not odd. You're not going in with like, 48 hours of like basically.
Unless it's the hit. Like, and when the cat's out of the bag anyway, sure. They'll
have a real camera.
But yeah, it's all hidden for evidentiary purposes. And then on the cases that make sense, if it's good for the cause, those can be turned into videos, but not the vast majority are not, especially if we're doing things that we wouldn't want the bad guys to know.
It's dangerous too. I mean, you must be, do you have to wear like a bulletproof vest? And
sometimes I have, but usually, usually it's best not. For me, I don't like to do that because I actually could alert them.
Yeah, that would be obvious.
I'd rather just rely on our skills to be undercover.
But it must be dangerous for all you guys though to do that because anyone could just pull out a gun.
We were in a place earlier this month where the trafficker was being protected by the local police. The local police were showing up to
oh my gosh
the meetings, and so we're looking at the police outside like, wow, these kids have no hope.
Right,
their only hope is out there protecting the perpetrator.
Right. I mean, how often are the local police involved though? Like how often are they shady? I would imagine they're getting paid off all the time.
They're getting paid off. So that's why we use, in fact, I'll show you a video after this, but we just got back and it's the clip that we sent to so we'll work with a different police, like a federal or national police force.
Right.
That would come in and be new. Like you can't use the local
absolutely
police
not.
in most places we work. You have to find vetted units. Our embassies are often helpful to point us in the right direction to find the vetted units that are trustworthy, at least have a proven track record.
Right.
But we go in looking very different. I'll show you this picture.
You didn't look very different at the Tony Robbins thing when they showed the video. You look exactly the same like this.
Which one?
Well, I don't know. They were showing all these videos, remember? And I was bawling. I was, by the way,
was I undercover?
My eyes were blurry. I don't know.
So,
were you undercover?
Well, those videos might have been from before we got bigger.
Oh, okay.
But once we got bigger, so
that's you?
Yeah, see?
No way.
Yeah, don't show the camera.
Okay. That is not you. Yeah. I would never have guessed.
You would never guess.
But your face looks different.
Right.
How?
I contort it. Like Jim Carrey.
I kid you. No, I'm serious. You don't look like the same person.
I know. And I talk differently and I have contacts, change the color of my eyes. You would never recognize me. So you basically you have to you got to be a chameleon. Yeah, we have several makeup artists. I could have a scar down my face. I could have a big beard like that dude over there. And that might not be a real beard for all we know.
I was going to say, now I don't know who you are. This is unbelievable. So this is like Mission Impossible, literally.
Yeah. Because we move around a lot of countries and I'm careful because I'm out there, but if I'm confident, I can, there's some cases that I feel like I need to be involved in and I'll do it if I feel like I need to, or I'll be the guy in the van, or directing it from, we have software to where I can direct operations from 3,000 miles away, but still have bird's eye over everybody, see their movements over the satellite imagery. And
well, how often are you traveling? How often are you doing all of this?
Recently, we've had a really good year, so we're trying to open up countries. So I like to, if we're opening new countries, I personally like to be involved with the initial work. Okay. Even getting into the weeds and everything. Right. So there's 2 countries I'll tell you offline what they are that are new that we opened up, and so I'm probably gone. Every 2 weeks, guys? I'm probably running an operation right now. That won't last forever, but.
So you're gone every 2 weeks for how long?
Oh, anywhere between a week or.
Wow. And you have 9 kids.
We can have, but then we'll go home and then go back again and go back. We'll do 2 or 3 trips to the same place until we finally. Nab them.
But okay, so throughout all this, how many people have you actually? What's the number of people you've actually?
The number of people that we have directly had involvement in the extraction is over 5,000. 5,000. Mm-hmm.
And then how many people have you caught, like traffickers that are?
What's that number? 3,000? We're approaching 3,000. We're getting close to. It's going up so fast. So
wow.
Is 5,000 the right number too? Yeah. So almost 3,000.
And what happens to those people, the traffickers? Do they go to jail? What's the process?
So we work in countries that have pretty good laws in place, and we try to bring our embassy friends in.
Don't they get killed in jail? That's the pedophiles are the number one.
Yeah, that can happen. That can happen. The pedophile is not safe generally in a lot of jails.
Nope.
But they should think about that before they rape children.
I was going to say, too bad for them, I guess, right? I guess that's their problem.
But we don't, this is where we can't really, we have to work within the bounds of that government.
Right.
We are just basically guests, informants, signed up, registered informants for that government. It's that government that has to make those decisions and has to do the prosecutions. And so we can just advise on that. Where we don't turn it over to the governments is the aftercare. Right. Because too often in some of these countries, it's not a good aftercare system program. So we will, we find our own partners and we tell our law enforcement partners, we will help you, but anyone that's rescued has to go to this place or this place because we vetted them out. We know that they're safe and good. So that's how we run our aftercare. So anytime I'm doing an operation, I have an aftercare team with me. Wow. There, even before I get there or while I'm there, to make sure those relationships are solid.
Right.
And if we don't have them, we won't even do the rescue operation.
And then how often are these traffickers, like, do they get off? Like, how often are they just kind of, they have a good lawyer or they have a good thing? Does it happen often?
No.
No.
I think we're pretty good at when you're filming everything for evidence, it's really solid. I mean, we show up. Yeah, it can happen. We work in country like Haiti, for example.
Right.
Those are just rescue operations without any hope, very little hope that there's going to be a prosecution.
Right.
The bad guy's paying off the cops. And so people would say, don't work there. What are you doing? You're crazy to work there. Well, ask those 10 women who we just attended their graduation, by the way.
Wow.
Because they got scholarships to university. And just last week, we're all in tears watching them get their diplomas. So ask them why we went to Haiti, even though we didn't get to arrest anyone and no one went to jail. I mean, that guy's still active and we're still trying to do what we can, but it's worth it anyway to get them out. So.
Absolutely. Now, can we talk about this dark web? Because, admittedly, I'm very tech unsavvy. I mean, I'm terrible with my computer, but how do people even know how to get onto these things? Like, where is this dark web? I mean, I know you don't want to talk to all of a sudden everyone's going to be doing it, but I mean, how easy is it to even access? I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I know Google.
Yeah.
And then do you go Google dark web?
No.
Like, what do you put in there? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So these are systems that are kind of off the grid, meaning it's not part of the traditional internet.
Right. So where are they going?
So, for example, when we picture we picture the internet and websites, right? We're going to, these are controlled by servers. And so there's some corporation, and they're working with internet service providers, and it's all kind of, there's structure to it.
Okay.
So imagine if there's a place where that doesn't exist. There's no central server somewhere. There's no one.
But let's say LA, we're here in LA, right?
Yeah.
And I was a pedophile, but I was like, how would if I was not savvy, I'm not an IT person, how would I even begin?
Okay. So there's software, for example. That you can download. And people use it all the time. They might not even realize it's called the dark net, right? But they'll download software that brings them into the new portal. And that portal will just be like computers talking to each other. So there's not like a central server. It's like a million computers. And let's say your computer is connected into that network because you downloaded certain software that you're now connected to a million computers throughout the world.
Wow.
But it's not the traditional system.
Right.
You're not going to Google and find that material. You only can find the material once you're in the network. And now it's just peer-to-peer, for example. This is one example where you're just computers talking to computers, all just individuals. So now what a great place to share illicit material.
Right, exactly.
Where there's no one really watching, right? So that's an example of...
Is it easy to find the software?
Yeah. Yeah, if you know what to look for. And it's not like the illicit part's small,
Right.
It's potent, but it's small. People are doing legitimate things on these networks, sharing music, sharing images, sharing whatever. But and then it goes deeper from even there to where, it's just a way to be super anonymous.
Now you also, I said you had 9 kids. You adopted 2 of the kids from one of these missions, correct? There's the Haiti mission, right? So can we just, you were saying earlier, I know we jumped a little bit because I'm riveted by you, but how you initially got in and Glenn Beck raised money. And is this the mission that you're talking about? That was the first one?
That was the first mission. Yeah. So we got intel on a trafficking ring that was kidnapping children in Haiti. And I had met the family of one of those kids. It broke my heart. And I promised the family we would always try to find their child.
Wow.
And that led us to intel where we found almost 30 children being sold in what was a false orphanage. It said orphanage on the wall, but it wasn't.
Right.
And those places exist all over. I mean, how do you get 2 million children or more into that black market? Well, it's fake modeling schools, fake orphanages. There's got to be a way, and then pedophiles or slave labor folks show up and buy the kids out of the orphanage.
Right.
And there's no record. These kids don't even have birth certificates. So in a lot of these countries, we take for granted the controls put in place here. I mean, this country's Like my kids, what we adopted, we had to guess on a birthday. There's not even a paper trail that they even live.
Wow. And I know it was that mission that one of the men that the boy's father, you never found that boy.
Correct.
That was 2 years, that was years ago. Did you ever find that boy?
No, we never found that boy, but as we look for that boy, it's so funny because we find other kids. So we've actually rescued hundreds of kids looking for this kid.
Wow.
And the first group of kids that we rescued looking for that kid, because we did find the place where he was.
The orphanage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went in undercover and they offered to sell us these kids. And the two that I bought was a brother and sister.
Right.
We bought them in a sting operation, and then I ended up bonding with them, and we ended up adopting them.
Wow.
But no, we have yet to find him, but we are doing everything we can in that area.
Still.
Still, but always finding others along the way. So.
That's and then what is so can you explain what this Nazarene Fund is? You have, obviously.
So the Nazarene Fund is an amazing organization that was founded by Glenn Beck and Mercury One back in 2014. This is when ISIS, remember when ISIS was all over the news, and they're making a mass comeback right now. By the way, they're coming back.
They are.
There's more numbers. There's more number now than ever before, and they're still alive and well. They're just waiting to spring in. And what they did was they went into parts of northern Iraq and Syria and just took over entire towns. Wow. And just said, we now own these towns. And if you were the wrong religion, so if you were Christian or Yazidi or some ethno or the religious minority, then you were a slave. You were told to get out, convert, or become a sex slave. And so these Yazidi people especially were hit hard. And they weren't even given a chance to convert. It was just all the men are dead, all the women and children are sex slaves. And they set up these, like in Mosul and other places in northern Iraq, where they took over the towns. They had these mass sex slave markets, where they would just pass around these kids and women.
Wow.
And so what the Nazarene Fund does is go in and one, try to get them out before ISIS gets to them, or once they were get them out. So we're extracting these people regularly. Still to this day, there's thousands missing. We have the list of all the missing Christian and Yazidi women and children, and we work to get them out. And we have operators on the ground who are, they're foreign nationals. They're Middle Easterners who just skilled, passionate, risking their lives to find these kids who aren't even their religion, by the way, right? They're these Yazidi. Yazidi are people that are very, they're beautiful, peaceful, agrarian type people that have just lived peacefully for thousands of years. And and ISIS saw them as nothing more than cattle to be butchered or whatever. So that's what the Nazarene Fund is. It works. So Glenn Beck founded it, and then he turned it over to us in 2017, 18. And so OUR and Nazarene Fund are kind of sister organizations. They're run completely separately, but I'm the CEO of both. So
wow, how many people do you have working for you now? Like, how big is this organization?
So OUR, we have. We're growing so much right now. What are we at? 40? About 40 employees, and then probably in terms of contractors, probably 40 more partners. At our partners, we're in the hundreds. We partner a lot. We find our other organizations like-minded, so we will work side by side with them, and they have their own groups on the ground. So the more we partner and build the network, the better. The
better, for sure. So, okay, so how can people listening, how can they help? What are some easy ways that they can help?
Well, they should go to OURrescue.org, our website, and hit the tab that says Join the Fight. And there's all sorts of options. Things they can do to get involved, whether it's fundraising or getting involved in some other way, awareness, events. So,
and then do your kids know what you do at this? How old are your kids? I know you got 100 of them, but how old are these kids? Do they understand?
My oldest is 21.
You have a 21-year-old?
Yeah.
You look like you're 21. How old are you?
I'm 45.
My God. You have a 21-year-old?
Yeah.
Jeez, I swear you look like you're like 21 years old.
Thank you, because I don't feel like I am. But
my
youngest is 4. So we run the whole thing. So it's crazy.
That's amazing. Do they know? Wait, I mean, the 21-year-old, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So the older ones, they want to come work for me. So I told them, you go get trained. You gotta.
That's amazing.
So-
well, how old? 21. How many older ones do you have? You have a 4-year-old. They're not working for you anytime soon.
Right.
But the 21-year-old could. How
Yeah.
old is the other? Like,
So just it goes 2018, 21, 19, 17, 15, 11, and then there's 2 of the same age because we adopted 2.
oh, you taught exactly.
I have two girls, a biological and my Haitian child.
Oh,
and
they're the same age.
They're the same
Oh.
age. In fact, they have the same birthday.
Are they well, how do you know? You don't have the
Because it was
birth
arbitrarily
certificate.
given, and then once they got here, it bothered my biological daughter that she had a birthday that was arbitrarily given because she knew because the 2 kids had the same birthday, which was February 19th, the day we rescued them.
Oh my! Wow.
And my daughter Della said they were 9 at the time. She said, I don't like that her birthday was just made up. Mine's a real birthday. I'll share mine with her because then we both have a real birthday.
Wow.
And eventually we just said, fine.
That's nice. That's
yeah,
cute.
so they share a birthday.
And talk about being a good role model. You know what I mean? Like, how does any parent even like come close to being like someone like you? Like, I mean, literally, you've given your entire life to like help and save children like around the world.
But it's funny you say that because I always feel the opposite because I'm never home.
And you're never home. Yeah.
So I just hope that they know why that is.
Right.
And I think they do eventually, but it hurts being gone so much.
Oh, I can imagine. Your wife is an angel. I mean, she's looking after all of these kids. Mm-hmm. And she's the one who actually pushed you a lot, right? To like do all this stuff.
I never would have done it were it not for her. Yeah.
Wow. What was her background? Like, what was she, like a teacher or like just a saint, or what was her whole thing?
Just a saint mostly.
Just a saint. Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought because.
Yeah. When we got to that point where I was like, what do? I can work these cases in Colombia and Haiti. I know we'll rescue kids.
Right.
But if I do the case, I have to quit my job. And if I quit my job, we have no money.
Right. And so she said, that's what she said. She pushed you.
She's like, who cares about the money?
Right.
Who cares? Like, if you think you can rescue kids, how are you going to meet your maker is what she told me. And how could you say no to this?
Right.
And that was she kind of put an end to the argument. But I fought her on it, especially when the money started coming in. I was like, let's just donate this to another charity that does similar work.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to stay in my government job. And she's like, oh, no, you're not.
I mean, mentally though, like what you have, have you become somewhat desensitized because you've seen so much? Like you must have like mentally so strong, like, or do you have to like see somebody to kind of deal with all this
This guy's
trauma?
laughing over here because he knows how mentally not strong I am.
Okay, I was going to say, like, you would have to, because obviously you were.
Thank you.
Well, you have to be a very compassionate, sympathetic, kind human to be able to do this. But that with those character traits come, like, you know, you have to. It must be very difficult daily to see such trauma and such awfulness.
It is daily. It is so hard. It's really hard, this work, and not for reasons you might think. It's hard enough,
right? That
you're seeing, like, just 2 weeks ago, I was in a place where I was brought 6-year-old boys who are being sold for sex, and it's just devastating. But you know the hardest part, and this is going to take a little twist. The hardest part is I was warned when I started this, like, the nonprofit world is horrible. Don't do it. Why? Because it's backbiting and mean, and I was like, no, not on this. 1,000 times worse than I thought.
Really?
Oh yeah. The solution to fighting human trafficking and ending modern day slavery really is, I believe, in the NGO space, working with law enforcement. But that NGO space, that nonprofit space, is super important. There was Kevin Bale, who was kind of the premier academic in the space, and he said nonprofits are the key, but they just will never get along because they have this scarcity mentality.
Right.
So like when OUR got really big, we got really big last year.
Yeah.
So many of my friend organizations turned on us, like just out of jealousy.
Right. Of course.
And it's just like, we're working with you.
Right. In nonprofit, you would think that it would be the opposite.
Scarcity mentality.
Right.
Of like, if you get the money, then we're not. And it's like, wait, did you forget what everyone's doing here?
Right.
Oh, you know, they might say, easy for you to say you guys got so big. I'm like, well, we just try to partner with everybody.
Right.
So that's one of the hardest things, like coming off the airplane after seeing a 6-year-old kid and strategizing and then having to deal with
that nonsense.
Oh, guess what? Your friends over here just did to you. You know?
Yeah.
I won't say names. Don't worry.
You should. I want to know names.
I should say names.
You should say names.
I won't though.
See, what was the precipice? Like, what made you, like, last year was a tipping point of some kind. What was it? It wasn't Tony's birthday. Well, maybe it was, I don't know. But what was that precipice, that moment that made you guys just kind of become?
I think we were kind of growing progressively.
You were,
but 2020 was a big year. I don't know that any of us have been able to totally figure it out. I think it had to do with, I think, there was an increase in the amount of abuse.
Right.
Because when government
COVID.
shut down and that societal infrastructure that keeps kids safe, schools, after school programs, that actually keeps kids safe from pedophiles and traffickers. But no one knew that, or they didn't, they knew it, but they didn't listen. And so when that kind of collapsed, people saw it. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported like millions of additional reports of child sex abuse that originated online, for example. So you see all these cases going and people are seeing it, they're recognizing it, and they're just like, what is going on? And we do something very unique. I love all the organizations and all focus on different areas. But what we're unique is we, and not saying there's others that do this too, we're not the only ones. But our kind of specialty is going into the darkness.
Yeah.
Like we work with the police, but we go into the darkest corners, like the story I just told you in Haiti, or the other one I just told you about. Yeah, we go in there. And so it's very direct action, where other things are important, but they're very indirect. So I think that when people were seeing that and they saw what we do, it was interesting to them. And we had a lot of very influential partners,
that brought more
brought attention to it. And I think, I don't know, would you explain it that way too?
Yeah, I think there was an uptick with the Wayfair. You heard about that last year?
You mean in Atlanta? Was that no?
There was talk of Wayfair.
So Wayfair was this online furniture company.
Oh, yeah, I know who they are.
Yeah, and there was like this conspiracy theory, and it turned out it was a total conspiracy theory about how they were selling furniture for like a lot of money, more than people thought they should be, and they were all named after names, and then people would say, "Oh, there's someone named Brittany who was missing." Well, yeah, there's every name in the world is a missing person.
Probably lots of them.
So they just kind of lined it up and said, "Look, they're selling people." Well, that's not the case. And so I think it was one post I did.
Oh my gosh, that's
ignited,
crazy. And
I just went on and said, I said, "Look, I don't think this Wayfair thing that hasn't proven out to be true, but I will tell you that people are sold online. I've been undercover on every social media platform that exists, and there are traffickers selling women and children through those means." So I kind of went through that, and that just resonated and got like millions of views, and that was one big thing that kind of threw us into the front.
Wow.
Or the public's mind, at least in this fight.
Well, I'm so glad it did, because this is one of those things that
it's been good and bad. I mean, it's been really good overall because it's allowed us. We've just opened up 4 new countries in the last several months.
But people now know who you are, so that can also be detrimental.
It's been really good, and bad for other reasons because of the other reasons I told you about.
Yeah, absolutely.
No NGO should grow that fast.
Right, exactly. So, no, it's 100% true.
Even though we're saving kids, that's secondary.
I know.
To the fact that you just got too big. Sorry. They're yelling at me.
Well, why don't you yell
nice.
at him? I like brutal honesty, and so this is great. How about TikTok? Has TikTok been a big place now because there's such there's so many young people there? Is that like a place where people are infiltrating a lot now too?
I think any
social media,
has the potential, and I'm not against any of them. We use them all for good. You 100%, use them all.
I get it.
But yeah, they're going to be exploited. All those platforms will be exploited by evildoers who are accessing kids or selling kids. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, okay, so people should go to the website, which is Operation Underground Railroad.
OURrescue.org.
Okay, and to get involved.
Or the NazareneFund.org.
Or the NazareneFund.org.
If you want to learn about that.
Yes. And is there anything else that you want to add before? I mean, I know I've kept you here a little bit, but is there anything else that you want to share?
I would the thing I would share to people is there will be people that watch your podcast that are like right now just like about to turn it off. I know that. Okay, they're like, how much am I going to listen to? Because it's hard, it's heavy to talk about this stuff. And I would just ask people like, to not turn it off, to don't be deterred to going to the website and getting involved. Is it hurt? Yes, we're not going to lie to you and tell you that this is easy. Just go and just learn more about children being raped.
Right.
Okay. It hurts. You shed a lot of innocence. But if we don't do it, then these kids will never be rescued.
Absolutely.
It's the one thing I always take note of. Like I just told you, I got back from an operation a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
We are in places all the time where it's just like, if we weren't here, because basically we went to the government of that country and they said, okay, be the tip of our spear.
Right.
Where do you want to go? We want to go here because here's the intel we have. Okay, we'll support you. Show us what you find. And they're shocked. They're just like, what are you showing us?
Absolutely.
I'll show you the video after. I can't show it here, but I'll show you
Promise.
after.
Okay, I want to see it.
And so the highest levels of their government are just like, what? We all know this town. We all go to this town. We had no idea this is happening.
So crazy.
And then when they find out that even the local police are providing support to the traffickers, right? So what hope do those kids have? Zero hope if we hadn't gone in with that government to go extract.
Exactly.
And so that's what I say to everybody. Like, there's no hope if we don't all do something, and it hurts to do it, but it's worth it.
Right. So please, everybody, I mean, it's going to be, we're saying it at the end, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to do it again in the beginning, that people should listen. They should go to your website. They should go to the Nazarene Fund also. They should help. They should do whatever they can, because this is a really big problem. And even if you don't have children, you have children, this is one of these things that needs you and needs your help. So needs your attention. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you, Jen.
on. It was so nice to have you.
Habits and hustle, time to get it rolling. Stay up on the grind, don't stop, keep it going. Habits and hustle, from nothing into something. All out, hosted by Jennifer Cohen. Visionaries, tune in, you can get to know them. Be inspired, this is your moment. Excuses, we ain't having that. The Habits and Hustle podcast, powered by Habit Nest.